Perfect. All right. So I've got David Watterson, one of the top leaders here at Forge. Thanks, Dave, for joining us I know it's Monday Night Football, so I'll keep it short and sweet for you. Um, but to start this off, just kind of give me an overview on when you started in door to door and kind of how you got involved.
Yeah, so I started the year of COVID, 2020. Beautiful year. So I was in class and I didn't really go to a lot of classes, so it was kind of a miracle that I was there in the first place. But I went to this class, and these guys that were running a company out of North Carolina were going to Texas Tech, where I was attending. And they stood up and kind of gave a little rundown of kind of what door-to-door pest control was, and were trying to recruit for their team. So I inquired about it and interviewed a few times and ended up jumping on that team. And that summer I went out to North Carolina. So since then it's been this next summer here in 2024 will be my fifth full summer.
Perfect. So kind of taking you back a few years to when you decided to, just jump in and before your first summer, like what were some of your thoughts? Why did you even decide in the first place to try to take advantage of this opportunity? What kind of stood out to you?
I always felt like I was someone who could relate to people and draw up conversation with people really well. So when they were talking about like sales and how it's really geared towards getting someone to like you and being in a position where I could learn that skill really well, kind of almost to a science, and get to try it a lot and make money while doing it, that attracted me. Of course, my dad was in sales, so when I brought it up to him, he was all for it, and he did nothing but encourage me on that. So when I decided to make the jump, that was kind of, and it was a jump, driving 21 hours. I'd never done something like that before. For a whole summer to stay completely away from like my life, but just the idea of the process of learning. I've never really been a money guy, and like it, obviously I need money. I was a sophomore in college, and if I didn't start to figure out something, and I didn't have any internships lined up, it's like if I don't figure out something, then I'm going to be homeless in Austin under a bridge. So I was like, yeah, let's try this out. I think I could do well at this, and yeah, I mean it's worked out.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess kind of going back to that first summer, what were some of the kind of concerns that you had going out? Obviously, never had done this before, probably didn't really have much of a sales background, and you're kind of just jumping right into it. What were some of those concerns that you had?
What's funny is my concerns really had. Sorry, my cat's opening my door. My concerns really. I felt like I was going to be an incredible salesman. I was like, especially with the training. The training made me feel really confident. And my biggest concerns really was like, are the people I'm going to be around going to be cool? Like, I'm a big social guy. Like, I want to hang out on the weekends and have fun and like party and stuff. And so that was probably my biggest concern. Just having like a cool group, which it ended up being a great group. But what I found out when I got there was that you got to learn sales still.
Yeah,
And so I got my teeth kicked in for a little bit there, but I figured it out. But other than that, I've never been too much of a like I feel like I'm kind of a risk taker in some ways, and um, I felt pretty comfortable doing it. I thought it was really cool. It felt really cool, like kind of doing this thing on my own. Like it was probably the first thing I really decided to do that was a big deal in my own life, and like just taking charge and going out and doing it, and going to a different state that I don't think I'd ever been in North Carolina, or at least maybe driven through but never been there. Didn't know any of the people there at all except for the guys that trained me, and doing a job I'd never done. So it was it was kind of, it's a risky thing, but I felt like that kind of empowered me. Like that felt really really cool, whether I was going to succeed or not.
yeah. And so I guess those concerns were they pretty quickly Did you kind of realize that those concerns weren't very valid that you had before the summer?
Yeah, I mean, I got there, and the guys that I was surrounded with were really cool. And what you find out is that for the most part, all the guys who are willing to take that jump and do something kind of drastic, like jumping to a different state for an entire summer, they end up being like cool guys that kind of think like you. They want to be entrepreneurs, and they want to be able to think for themselves. And so you end up. I've never had a summer where I don't have just the coolest group of guys around me. Of course, it's like not 100% of the guys you're going to love to death, but
Right.
part I've never had a summer that's not just surrounded by really cool guys. So my only concern being that I hope I fit in with this social group was squashed within a day.
Right. No, that's awesome. Kind of going back to your first couple summers or even the most recent ones. What are some of the highlights that you've experienced over the summers, and just some of the positive things that you've been able to take away?
So there's a lot of them to pick through. With I guess I can separate it in, like, from sales, and I'll talk about kind of the group, because I'm a huge social guy. I mentioned it, but I think one of the coolest things is, like, I'll say this past summer in Indianapolis, we had like the coolest group I've ever been around. Like, it was like 35 dudes that were just solid. Like, there wasn't a single person that I didn't want to be around. And so
Right.
every single weekend, being able to do events like going to Top Golf, or at the end, like one of the highlights that comes to my mind immediately is, and you were there, the dinner that we took
Yeah.
to that steakhouse. Like, that was hilarious. Like, the whole thing was so fun, and that's the kind of stuff I live for. Like, just being not only like being able to provide as a leader, like, provide that for the guys and have them have a good experience, but also, I mean, it's like I get it too. Like, I'm having just as good of an experience, if not more, watching that happen and being a part of that. So I love being a part of like a cohesive group that's all working towards something really, really hard every single day in synchron, like, how do you say, in synchrony. It's like,
Hmm.
it just feels really, really good. And I was actually, believe it or not, pretty sad to leave the summer this year. Now in sales, I mean, some of the biggest, like, feelings of joy in this job come from just like reaping what you sow, and putting all this work into it, and training over years, and you can look down at the leaderboard, 3 months after you start, and you're like, I hit that goal that seemed ridiculous at the beginning. Like, I hit it. Like, that's crazy. And you just have this sense of pride, and this sense of like nothing can stop you. And I don't think I would have, at least I hadn't before this job. I'd never found that any other place. So I feel really lucky to be in a position where I can set these really big goals that seem crazy, and then I can go out and I determine whether I hit that goal or not. Like, it's up to me. It's like, how much do I want to work? How much do I want? And if I go out there and do it, it's like, man, that always feels really good. And I'd say for even a rookie that sets a goal that's like, it's like, dude, I want to hit 100 grand. I want to hit 80 grand. And they do it like that. When I was a rookie and I hit my goal, I felt awesome. It was the biggest sense of pride I ever had.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, it's just because there's a lot of work that goes into it, and when you kind of realize your own potential, it is a big confidence booster. So, kind of building off of those good experiences, I guess what are some of the things that have happened to you over summers where maybe it was a little bit of a negative impact to you, but you kind of were able to overcome those things and just kind of push forward? How were you able to do that as a person?
Hmm. A negative impact. I mean, just like negative situations.
Yeah, I mean, just the ability to kind of overcome things that happen over the summer, and really what kind of pushes you forward to kind of get through those things and continue working as hard as you do.
Yeah, I think my answer would be a lot different now than my first year, because I guess my first year being a rep, being responsible for anyone, I would get hit with stuff like I almost broke my knee. Like, it was like a horrible knee injury, and
Hmm.
you know, I never really was. someone who would quit, like that wasn't really a question. Um, but the reason that I would push through and the way that I would push through is like I'm not gonna show anyone around me that I'm like weak in any way. Like I'm gonna hold true to my word and I'm gonna do this thing. Uh, Now, what it really is for me, like when I have a situation where I mean, there's a million things where you have rep troubles where somebody's, doing really bad and they want to go home. Or you have problems where, you know, three, four guys freaking cars break down and you've got to figure that out. Or guys are breaking iPads or they're getting kicked out, like whatever it is, there's a million things that go wrong. But now my answer to like what pushes me through that kind of stuff, and by the way, I view all of the things that happen negatively, like the trials and tribulations, as just more positive because it just builds your character. But um, now when I think of like what's pushing me through it, it's more of, well, I'm going to show these guys what it's like to be a leader, and I'm going to be like I'm gonna lead by example the whole way through. And so if they see me dealing with this and this and this and this and this, and I stay positive and I push through it, not only is that good for your own mental health, whether you're, when you're having some kind of negative thing, but it's also it inspires the team in a way. They're like, like that, like this is pretty dope. Like this guy is here for us, and like he doesn't let it get him down. Like he's gonna take care of it. And there's those kind of problems, and then there's your own personal problems, like still being a fourth year rep, I'd have days where my entire morning I made no sales, or like I'm getting pretty close to the end of the day and I'm really low on my sales and I need to be higher. Like those are just kind of those things you learn how not to let those emotions like affect you and just bring you up and down, because you can easily have a good day and be up and feel fantastic, and you can have those low days where you feel like you want to jump off of a bridge, but you come to the point where you realize that that kind of emotional thinking will drain you, it'll kill you. And so you just have to stay even. You get in that, what do you say, like a even keel, like where you're just not
Mm-hmm.
you're not letting the emotions pull you in one way or the other. You're like, I'm going to be one way at all times no matter what. And that's just like positive and neutral, and just pushing no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. So how has door to door changed you as a person, if it has, or how has it, affected your life?
Well, I think back to what I was just saying. It's it's made me more resilient. Like you start to realize that, I mean, for one, like everything's a numbers game. Like life is a numbers game. Everyone, you're gonna have things that go wrong no matter what. And it's in door to door. There's a lot of things like that. A lot of things that, because when you're solely paid on commission, like you do not make a dollar if you don't make a sale. Like that is emotional. That's tough. And when you go through that every single day, that feeling of you wake up in the morning and you have $0 on the day and you have to go out and make sure you make money. And if 2 hours into your shift you still don't have money, it's like this is starting to pull on me. 4 hours in, 10 hours into a shift and you don't make a sale, like that is tough. But you do it all the time and you become aware and like able to stay even keeled. That transfers to way more than just door to door, because now it's like it doesn't really matter what happens, whether it's like with friends, with relationships, with life. You have some kind of negative thing happen to you. Well, I'm like, I've dealt with a lot of negative stuff. I know how to not let it affect me, because regardless, negative stuff's going to happen to me, but how am I going to react to it? And in door to door, it's kind of like it's like one of the unique things about door to door is you get a lot of chances to try and sell a prospect, and you get really good at that. It's the same thing here. It's like I'm getting a lot of chances to get hit with negativity, and I get to learn how to react to that. And so I'd say that's one of the biggest things. Not only that, but of course monetary. It allows
Mm-hmm.
me, of course the moving can be kind of strenuous, but it allows me to be working for 4 months out of the year, and then for the other 8 months, I kind of just get to decide what I want to do. Of course, I'm still working, but it's like I'm here, I'm there, I'm vacationing, I'm kind of more remote, and I have enough money to support the lifestyle and save for the future. So it's been nothing but a blessing for me.
Yeah. And kind of just to build off of that a little bit, You've been in the industry for 4 years now, and you're 23 years old, and personal income wise, you've made north of about $600,000. How does that make you feel? Did you even think that that was possible when you first started?
No, I never really thought of it. I didn't know I was going to do it past one summer. I thought it was a one summer internship. and
Yeah,
then, and then I realized the money potential in it was like, oh wow, like this is pretty huge. But again, I'm not really a monetarily driven person. Like when you said that number, I'm like, really? If I like start adding it up because it's not one of the biggest things, and I tell people this all the time with money, is it doesn't, as long as you're able to pay for like your necessities, like and you're making a certain amount of money, um, the extra additional money doesn't really add like additional happiness, right? It doesn't like make
right,
you, I don't know. It doesn't make you like more happy with where you're at. Like that's a daily thing that you have to do because I still get bored all the time, and I still have days where I just wake up and I'm in a cruddy mood, and like the cool this or the cool that I'm able to buy isn't raising my mood up.
yeah,
That more comes from like your inner self and like your relationship with yourself and people around you and all that. So yeah, no, I never really thought it was possible, and it's definitely I appreciate every dollar I've made because it's allowing me to live freer and it's allowing me to look into the future and say like, okay, now when I have a family, I'm going to be in a lot better spot to where I'm not as tied down. And I think that's the only way I really look at money is it's kind of more of just a means to getting to where I'm not I have freedom, and that's what I really
right.
value over the money itself. Though the money is helping me get there, but I think money can be kind of viewed as this thing where it's like oh man, if I could have some more money, dude, I would I would do this and do that with it. I would buy this and it would be awesome. But like I still drive like a piece of garbage car that's literally about to fall apart. Like you drove it all summer, it's on its last leg. But I know that if I buy a freaking BMW, it'll be fun for like 3 days, and then it's like, all right, I just wasted 80 grand. Like what? I could drive that old cruddy car I had before.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that's great. A lot of people do have that mindset around money where it's like I have to get it to be happy. But I think it's nice hearing from people like yourself who are at a young age but have seen a ton of success on the financial part of their life, and still have that kind of outlook when it comes to money, because not a lot of people do. And I think that's one of the great things about having you a part of kind of what we're doing, and you being such a great leader, is that you're kind of able to instill that knowledge into younger guys. So that's awesome. Kind of lastly, transitioning back to kind of your first summer, on a scale of 1 to 10, one being it was like the easiest thing you've ever done, 10 being it was definitely much harder than you had anticipated. Where does, kind of that first summer rank for you?
It's a good question. Um, you know, First summer, I gotta think about it. I think it was work wise and in the schedule and how much we work and like the difficulty of the actual job emotionally and just like even physically being out all the time. I'd say it was probably like an eight. And I think I probably expected it to be something like a five or a six.
Hmm.
Now, I think that eight was a lot more doable, and it was like looking back on it, I think it was more hard than I thought. But in the time that I was there, like it didn't feel like an eight because every day it was just like it just felt like a game. Like we would go out and we would do this thing and we'd look at the leaderboards and you see these numbers just stacking up. And then we'd get home and we're all having fun, like we're just chatting and we have our stories to tell. And then it was on the weekends, like we're going out to these fancy restaurants and we're just having these like the experience just felt it wasn't just like oh we're like working 9 to 5 like trying to make ends meet get me a get food on the table. It was like we're just playing this game that just it ends up being profitable. Now, if you asked me about my second year when I managed my first team, that was like a 12. that
Right.
that was way harder. But man, I learned some valuable stuff there too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a tough transition into the management perspective. But if you were to, give a couple pieces of advice to guys that are kind of thinking about this, or they're getting ready to go out for their first summer, what's one thing or two things that you would kind of give to them to help them, make that decision or have a successful first summer?
The number one thing, and this is something that's like, I guess it depends on when you hear this interview, but train as much as you possibly can in the off season. Like learn as much possible material that you can. And I mean, the more that you get on calls with managers, the more little tidbits you get. You get just like more ammo, more tools to put in your belt. So that when you go out in the summer, you've only got 3 months, and those 3 months go by fast. Like it doesn't feel like it's fast in the moment, but all of a sudden it's July 31st, and you look back and you're like, holy crap, we got 2 weeks left, and like, I'm not where I want to be, or like, man, I didn't expect it to go that fast. So every year, consistently, the guys who train the most in the off season are the ones who go out there and they do the best every single time, without a doubt. And so that's what I would say. If one of the biggest things people always think, they're like, oh, well, I'll figure it out when I get there. I'll train when I get there, and they don't take it as seriously or take advantage of the amount of training that we have available, and that leaders are willing to give. So that's one of the big things. And to build off of that, like just swallowing your pride, and even though you're a freaking ladies' man and you can talk to everyone and drum up conversation in the bread aisle, it's like you've got to be able to just set your own knowledge aside and what you think and listen to what works and what's been done for the last 5-10 years of these leaders that we have that are out here and been doing this for a long time. It's like listen to them and absorb all of it, and don't think, I don't know if that's great. I probably won't. I don't think that would work for me, and just discard it in one ear and out the other. Like, dude, these guys, we know it works, and it's down to like literally a science. And so the more that you train and the more that you can take each piece of advice and like really absorb it, like write it down and practice it, you're gonna be way further better than a lot of guys will be. The other thing, maybe like during the summer, I give a tip like. I'm trying to think of one for the summer that kind of is just it's kind of hard to like say this. It's like be you got to be adaptable. Like it's it's something you've never ever done before, and you kind of just got to take everything and I guess it kind of goes off of like even keel as well. Like you're gonna get hit with stuff you never thought you were gonna get hit with. Like when people come out and they're pissed, like you're in real life. You go out and you talk to someone, they're like, talk to you, you're like, that's fine, I'll leave. Like, I don't care. There's no,
Yeah.
well, when your job is, I've got to sell you to make a dollar, that's a whole different thing. And that was one of the things that really shocked me at the beginning was like, oh my God, these people don't all want to talk to me. Like, they don't all just want to,
Hmm.
I've got to make them, I've got to work a little bit for this. And so being really adaptable, really understanding it's like not everyone wants to see you all the time. You need to figure out what it's like to deal with that and not react in a way that's like, because man, my first summer, I can't lie and say I never thought about leaving. I can't lie and
Right.
say I thought about quitting. But
Hmm.
that's just your inner self chatting at you. You've got this consciousness that reacts to everything, and you've got to silence that. Because of course, like when you're doing something hard, when you're running along, like your body's like stop, stop, but you just got to keep her going. Keep asking your managers at night for help. Keep knocking the exact hours. Hours are huge. It's a habitual. If you start knocking 30 minutes less and then an hour less, it just over the whole summer that's I don't know 1,000 hours. Whatever it is, and so. Yeah, being really, really adaptable, staying even keel no matter what emotions hit you, being like just a student of the game, always hungry for learning, and Yeah, training a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's it's funny because even talking to guys that have just done this for the first summer and yourself, who's been 4 years in, the advice is usually always the same, and it's you can never overtrain. So I definitely appreciate that. That's really all I had for you today. Thanks for hopping on the call Monday night. I know it's football, so I'll let you get back to it.
Cool.
All right, Dave. See ya.
Peace, Donnie.